Hello friends, welcome to the Movieology channel. In today's video, I'm going to explain of Light Shop, which is episodes 3. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the new episodes first. Now, let's dive into the video. Episode 3 is called The Detective. It's set a month before what we've seen so far. In this episode, a woman named So Young casually watches TV at home. Suddenly, there's a loud knocking on her door, like someone is trying to break it down. So Young gets scared and thinks it might be her ex-boyfriend. Footsteps are heard, and when So Young slowly opens the door to peek outside, a shadow suddenly attacks her at the corner of the corridor. The next moment, we see that So Young has been thrown off her floor, and she dies from the fall. We then see a scooter with a helmet, whose number plate is 8525. Next, we see Min-soo sitting on a bus heading out of the city, looking scared. The bus doors close and it starts moving, giving Min-soo a bit of relief. But suddenly, Detective Sung-sik shows up, the same detective we saw at the light shop in episode 2. He stops the bus and gets on, telling everyone to get off. Min-soo realizes that Sung-sik is there to arrest him, so he nervously stays seated and doesn't want to get off. And Sung-sik suspects that Min-soo killed his ex-girlfriend. During this, we also learn from Sung-sik that a fire was set in So Young's house, which caused her death. So Young. So he starts walking towards Min-soo's seat. At the same time, we notice that a girl sitting in the front row, and Sung-sik places his hand on her seat. Suddenly, Min-soo sees So Young, technically dead, but now a spirit. Min-soo gets scared when he sees her spirit, and Sung-sik catches him and takes him outside to his team. The police take Min-soo to the station, where Sung-sik tries to light a cigarette, but an officer stops him, saying it's a non-smoking area. However, Sung-sik is surprised when he looks at his hands, because they have ash marks. He wonders how those marks got there, although Sung-sik doesn't focus on it much. Next, we see an elderly man sitting at home, comfortably watching TV. He's right-handed. Suddenly, a shadow appears at his door, and he asks, "Who's there?" The scene cuts to the next day, where we find Sung-sik at the police station, trying to fix a lamp on his desk. He's reading the So Young case file, and in the file, there's a photo of a girl we've seen before at Joe's school. The interesting thing about this girl's case was that her accomplice had been caught, but the girl herself was never found, and Sung-sik had filed the case under unsolved. Sung-sik tries to light a cigarette with a lighter, but it doesn't work. At that moment, his colleague, Officer Gyeol, tells him that Min-soo has been released because what happened to So Young was just an accident. Min-soo was somewhere else at the time, and a witness confirmed it. Hearing this, Sung-sik gets anxious because he believes So Young was murdered. Confused, he leaves under the excuse of eating and goes out for some noodles. Later that night, Sung-sik arrives at a new crime scene. It's the same elderly man's house we saw earlier, who was watching TV. The man has passed away in his chair. His face has several moles, and the strangest thing is that he had a faint smile on his lips at the time of death. Everyone thinks it's just a regular heart attack, but Sung-sik feels something's off. Sung-sik's partner, Gyeol, informs him that the man lived alone. His wife had died years ago, and his children and grandchildren lived abroad. Before his death, the elderly man had spoken with his children and grandchildren on the phone. Sung-sik spots some sticky marks on the floor as he prepares to leave. He inspects them briefly but doesn't pay much attention and heads home. When he gets to his bathroom, he starts reminiscing about his wife, Mi-yi, and the happiest moment when she tells him she is pregnant. But these memories only cause him discomfort, and he falls asleep in despair. In his dream, he relives happier times with Mi-yi when discussing baby names. Suddenly, his phone rings, and he has to leave for work. Mi-yi always found it strange that Sung-sik was obsessed with his work. She thought his job meant too much to him. But so far, we don't know if Mi-yi is alive or if she's left him. Sung-sik lives alone. The next morning, we see him eating noodles. As he wipes the sauce from his lips, it suddenly hits him. He sees the same sauce on the elderly man's lips and the floor. The elderly man ordered noodles shortly before his death. Maybe something in the noodles was what killed him. When Sung-sik arrives at the station, he learns that the elderly man's family refused a post-mortem, so the case is closed. But Sung-sik is not one to back down easily. He seeks help from Yuna and gets addresses for nearby Chinese restaurants. He visits each one, asking questions and trying to find clues. The rain continues, and delivery services are shut down. He finally reaches a restaurant with a delivery scooter parked outside that night. The surprising thing is that the scooter's number is 8525. It's covered in mud, showing it had been used in the rain. Sung-sik begins to suspect that the killer might own this scooter. He enters the restaurant, observes the owner closely, and inspects everything in detail. He remembers that a man wearing glasses, who had signed documents at the police station, owned this restaurant. It seemed unusual for someone to wear glasses at that time. After tasting the noodles from the restaurant, Sung-sik is convinced that the elderly man ordered them from there. But when he asks the owner, Sang-hoon, the man denies it, saying his restaurant isn't registered online and doesn't do deliveries. Sung-sik tells Sang-hoon that the elderly man came here and ordered the noodles. Sang-hoon gets nervous, but Sung-sik leaves. Once back, he reviews all the cases involving mysterious deaths. We see Sang-hoon chasing So-young's spirit on his scooter a month later. Sung-sik is keeping a close watch on him. He catches Sang-hoon before the scooter, but So-young's spirit falls. Sang-hoon is shocked, wondering how Sung-sik can see So-young's spirit. As Sung-sik realizes that So-young's bloodied face and burned body mean she's a spirit, he's stunned. He understands now that So-young is dead. Sang-hoon tries to harm her, but Sung-sik quickly subdues him. At that moment, Sang-hoon's eyes start glowing strangely. Sung-sik, surprised, asks, "Why are your eyes like that?" The scene suddenly shifts, and we find Sung-sik with Won-young at the light shop. He had come to investigate the elderly man's death, but stopped when he saw Ji-young. Blood is dripping from Ji-young's suitcase. Sung-sik watches him suspiciously, but decides it might just be an emergency. He gives Ji-young a raincoat and lets him go. At the same time, we see Hyun-ju returning to the light shop to buy a bulb for her mother. Won-young speaks with Sung-sik. There are many questions in Sung-sik's mind, but he doesn't say much. Won-young realizes why Sung-sik is there. Sung-sik's eyes fall on a flickering bulb, and he looks at Won-young in surprise. What are the secrets of the dark alley and the strangers? We'll get the answers in the next episode. Episode 3 ends here. If you enjoyed this detailed explanation, please like the video. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe.